Happy Monday again, everybody, and thanks again for joining us here on KXAN News at 4. Of course, if you're looking back here from the Austonian, it is completely sunny out there, very hot as well on this first start of the work week, but we had some showers that moved in over the weekend, including a downpour in Austin on Saturday. Chief Meteorologist Nick Bannin is tracking all of this for us, and Nick, this makes an already wet month even more so.
Yeah, it's really just putting us higher up on the list. Even before this weekend, this was one of our wettest Julys on record, and now we're continuing just to add to that. These are all the days that it has rained in Austin anyway this month at Camp Mabry. And interestingly, out of the 4 weekends that we've had in the month of this July, it will have rained on 3 out of the 4 weekends at some point in Austin at Camp Mabry. Only the weekend before this last weekend did it not rain, at least in Austin. You could see, of course, the bulk of our rain came during that very wet and historic rainfall that we had at the beginning of the month. But then it rained the second week of July as well, even into the third week. And then now an additional about 1/3 of an inch, a little more than 1/3 of an inch of rain that came this past Saturday. You can see what that means then. Rainfall for the month, more than 6 inches now. That's 4 1/3 inches more than normal for month to date. Normal month to date is 1.79 inches. And we're still maintaining this surplus of rainfall year to date as well, although it's not a big surplus. It's less than an inch of rainfall. But what this means is that we have moved out of the 10th wettest July spot now up to 9th with now 6.08 inches of rain. Not expecting much rain over the next week, but there's the chance we could get some, say, toward the very end of this week, although, of course, August arriving here in just a matter of days. So it's unlikely that we move up before we head into a new month, but still 9th wettest July on record in Austin, and still very impressive rainfall for a month that usually is our second driest month of the year. On KXAN.com right now, of course, you can always explore Austin's weather data as we look at it. You can look at it. You can even double check us if you'd like and let us know. But generally speaking, just about all the weather information that you could ever dream of is there under the weather and traffic tab. Just click on Explore 2025 weather data. All right, what's happening outside now? Blue skies, sunshine, few scattered clouds. These generally speaking have been not able to rise too much as high pressure is not quite overhead, but certainly dominating the weather now after some wet weather over the weekend. This high is going to move even more overhead as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, and that will allow our temperatures to climb. At the same point, our air is going to dry out too Tuesday and Wednesday. That drier air is easier to heat up, so we've got a pretty good shot at triple-digit heat the next couple of days. Then as we get toward the end of the week, that high starts to shift to our west, which will bring the heat down slightly and also open the door eventually for some rain chances as we wrap up the work week and come into the weekend. No major storm systems, but during a flow like this out of the north or northwest on the east side of a high, we can get some rain and storms coming our way during the later part of the day, and that is a possibility here this weekend again. Of course, this weekend, though, will be the first weekend in August, so we may continue our wet weekend pattern that we've had much of this past month. On clouds and radar right now, quiet, sunshine, scattered clouds, just a few puffy clouds closer to Caldwell County, trying to squeeze out a stray shower there, Caldwell into southern Bastrop County, so just a minimal opportunity for rain, call it a less than 10% chance of rain. But largely speaking, most of the state is rain-free until you head well to the west of us, southeast of El Paso. There's some flash flood warnings out there and some rain too, but none of that near us here in central Texas, and not expected to make its way here either. So most of this evening will be mostly clear. There'll be a brief period of some patchy low clouds by morning as we drop down to 74. And the wind fairly light tonight and fairly light tomorrow. Any early morning clouds quickly giving way to sun tomorrow, and we'll go with a high of 100. Now, we often look at the dew point when we're determining just how comfortable or uncomfortable the humidity is going to make you feel. Dew points in the 70s and into the 80s is just tropically oppressively humid. We've got dew points in the 60s now, which is still kind of humid, but it's going to get much drier tomorrow as some drier air higher up in the atmosphere mixes down to the ground. It's still going to be a pretty humid beginning to your Tuesday, dew points upper 60s and low to mid 70s. But then that drier air is going to drop down from the upper levels of the atmosphere down to the ground in the afternoon, dropping the dew points into the 50s and in some places even the 40s. This would be some of the driest air we've had in weeks, if not months, here in Central Texas. Still going to come with the heat though, but it'll be a dry heat. Then the temperatures will be dropping later in the week into the weekend, and at the same point the humidity returns. And with that humidity will come additional rain chances, 10% chance Friday. Highest chance of rain over the next week comes on Saturday. Those chances right now at 30%, 20% chance of rain on Sunday, and back down to 10% by next Monday.